what do we need to do to become match fit? In other words, what do we need to do in order to be at our best for the rest of the year, and deliver what we need to deliver in the workplace, but also personally on the back of that. Because not to scare anybody, but my two youngest daughters are already talking about Christmas. So we know it's going to go quite quickly, and we just probably need to be match fit in order to be able to deal with it. Yeah? Okay, so let's have a look at this then. Before we went away, if you come on the sessions, we talked about 3 phases. These were the 3 phases we talked about. We talked about survival phase. That was the phase we went in during lockdown. So lockdown was announced. It seems kind of a bit of a distant memory, complete and utter lockdown now actually. It seems like it ages ago. But this is what happened. When we went into lockdown, we went into survival mode. Now, if you remember what we said, survival mode in itself is quite scary, and people go through that change, which again, I will brief you on again to make that fresh in your mind, because that's very, very important, especially if you want to be match fit. Okay, we need to be in the exploration, acceptance phase of change. But we went into survival mode, and it's scary in itself, survival mode. However, gone too quick, sorry. However, it's safe. So we go into survival mode, and the reason it's safe is because all we have to really focus on is how we get through the day or the week or the month. We don't have to think of the long-term future. That's why it's a little bit safer than the next phase. So we go into this reset phase next. Now, some people are still in this phase. We haven't got to Excel yet. There are companies that I know that are still in this phase. There are companies that are trying to move out of it. There are companies still back here, unfortunately. And this reset phase is where you're kind of just taking stock and resetting everything you do for semi-permanent future going forward. And having, conversations with Pete and Lindsay and people like that, that's what you guys have certainly been through this, last few months. Obviously there's, restructure, all that type of stuff that's going on. A little bit of that maybe hasn't finished yet, so we're still doing a little bit of this reset, and there's parts of the business that are now going into the Excel phase or the peak performance phase, which is why it's so important we need to be match fit. We need to be in a position to be able to take this phase, by the scruff of its neck and do something with it on the back of that. So the reset phase is all about going, how do we do things differently now, kind of semi-permanently going forward with that, so we can excel. And when you move into the Excel phase, you are reaping the rewards of all the hard work that you did in survival and you did in the reset phase as well on the back of that. So remember though, we don't like change. So moving between these phases constantly makes us change. We don't like change, if you remember. Very brief recap for 2 reasons. The first one is lack of gestalt, lack of balance, lack of equilibrium. That's what we get knocked out of when something changes, okay? And, there are local lockdowns and things in place and things like things are regularly changing even still at the moment. Kids going back to school, this week. Last week alone, kids going back, got to wear masks. They haven't got to wear masks. Some are going back in the first week. Some are not going back in the first week. So it's up and down, up and down, up and down, okay? And what it does is it knocks that lack of balance out of us, okay? We're up to nearly 30 on numbers, great. It knocks that lack of balance, that lack of gestalt out of us. And remember the psychological term, the internal picture in your head doesn't match the outside picture in the world, and we want to try and bring that into balance. That's the first reason we don't like change, and the second reason is the perceived loss of control. Okay, we don't think we're in control of things around us, and that obviously affects us, and it actually just knocks us more out of balance when we've got perceived loss of control as well. Okay, you will remember this. If you don't, it's been far too long since we've done any sessions, but you'll remember this. This is a transition curve. Remember, very briefly, there are 5 stages of change. The first one is the change itself, and after that happens, we go into shock. Our productivity drops at that point, but after a little while of shock, we do start talking ourselves out of the change, and we go into a phase of denial. When we go into the phase of denial, our productivity increases, because we're denying actually what's going to happen. Then the transition starts to take hold, the reality of what's happening. We might feel that we're bumped over the head, we might feel annoyed, or we might feel upset and low. At some point we get down to the bottom of the transition curve. This is where we, if you remember, we start to self-sabotage, or we sabotage other people. So we're at the bottom of that curve, we're kind of swinging about, we don't feel great, we're not happy, we're out of gestalt, we're not in control of anything. But it is the point of realization. Okay, so it is that point where we go, okay, what am I going to do about this? Because if you don't make that decision, we stay stuck in a rut. You know, you've heard me say this standing joke a number of times. If you know somebody in your organisation that is still moaning about something that happened 10 years ago, then they are stuck in transition from something that happened 10 years ago. And they've stuck in this rut for a very, very long time that doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do them any good, and it certainly doesn't do the people around them any good, because as you know, moaning is infectious, and we've covered that a number of times. Good morning, how are you? The Monday morning grunters, or should I say this week maybe Tuesday morning grunters, on the back of it, and it's just no good. Doesn't do anybody any good, doesn't do yourself any good, doesn't do anybody else any good. So what we need to do is move into the exploration phase. We need to try and get out of the transition, whether that's going into lockdown, coming out of lockdown, going through your organisational restructure, having to work differently because you're working from home, and so on and so on and so on, yeah? Whatever it may be, exploration is where we need to be. Now, if we're talking about being match fit and being ready to tackle the future months, certainly up until over Christmas and get into a new year, then we've got to at least be in this phase, if not, be in the phase of acceptance, where we kind of go, right, you know what, yeah, it's happened, we've dealt with it, we need to move on, let's get in there. Because if you try and be match fit when you're coming down here, it's not going to work. So the reason I've put this up again, and I know you've seen this 100 times already now, well, the people that come on every week have seen it 100 times already, but the reason I've put this on is because this match fit mentality, we've got to be here in order to deal with that. Because if you're coming down here, very, very difficult to be practical, very, very difficult to think of the success of the future, and so on and so on and so on. So we've got to get into this exploration phase. So if you're not already, if you are one of those people that might be still down here, you know, and I know there's still changes going on in the organisation, I understand that, but if you are one of these people that are currently, that feel like you're down here, we need to try and get you out here to get to... Now, some of the stuff I'll give you today will help you get out anyway. But ideally, we need to be in exploration phase so we can get up to acceptance in order to be match fit and follow the solution-focused system that I'm going to share with you. Okay? So, we need a plan in place. You need a physical plan and you need a mental plan in place. Now, we've talked about this. In other words, a new psychological contract. Again, this has been mentioned before, but in order to be match fit, you've got to have a plan, and I'm going to come on to that in a bit more detail in a moment. But the plan is split into physical and mental. So you need a physical plan to do physical things, which again we'll talk about shortly. You also need a mental plan, okay? You need a self-talk package, if you like. You need a growth plan for the brain in order to make sure that you match fit, okay? So we do need those two things. I'm going to talk about them shortly in a moment, okay? The new normal is here to stay. Whatever the new normal is you make, okay? So a lot of people think this is out of their control. It doesn't need to be out of their control. You know, I was having a chat with John Oakes, who works for Pete, the other day, and Pete, you know, John was saying that, you know, he's now making a space permanently to work more effectively from home than he's had for the last few months. You know, it's that kind of thing. What's the plan? The new normal is here to stay for a little while. You know, will we get back to exactly how we were before? No, but that's a good thing in my opinion. We can take all the great stuff we were doing in the past and leave some of the crappy stuff behind that we used to do. And like people working from home and things like that. It's, a lot of people are much more tolerant of it, or more trusting of it, or whatever it may be than before, because, so we can take the good stuff from the past, but we can also take the great stuff from what's happened during COVID-19 and also make that the new normal going forward. So we do need some plans in place, which we'll get to in a moment for that, okay? So how can we be match fit? Well, it's the final mode. It's, if you're match fit, then you can excel. That's the point we're trying to make. If you're in the position to be the best you can be, and achieve peak performance, and aim for 100 foot, then we're moving into the final phase, this excelling. Remember, survival, reset, excel, okay? And it's broken down into 5 areas that I'm going to take you through today. Now, if any of you guys have done a leadership program with me, or maybe an L8 program, 5 or 7 days long, something like that, the whole first 2 days are set around a solution-focused system. It's our system that we designed based on lots of research I did a long time ago. And there's 5 areas of it. It's a 4-piece jigsaw, 5 areas. So it's not the tier cycle, which I've shared with you before. It's a 4-piece jigsaw with 5 areas. And if we do all of these things, we become match fit. And that's what I'm going to take you through today. So area number 1 is getting the right thinking and behaviour. Area number 2 is having the right goals and motivation in place. Area number 3 is generating the right ideas and planning those things in place. Now that particular area is actually going to be looked at in detail on the 11:30 session that I'm doing. I'm going to touch on it today, but the 11:30 session is about innovation to action. So this bit in particular, we've got a full session on at 11:30, creating new ideas that you've not had before and putting them into a plan and taking action on them, okay? However, to bring the system together for you today and being match fit, that's what we need to do. Second to last one, is taking action and measuring that. And then finally, responsibility and accountabilities. Okay? So those are the 5 areas that make up our solution-focused system. Now, I want to give you a bit of background on this, because it's not just something that I designed because I thought it looked nice. Many years ago, I was part of a research team, and that research team went out and over about 18 months, we went and found 4,000 successful people, and we asked them, long story short, in essence, we asked them what they did to become successful. So what was it? What were your principles? What actions did you take in order to become successful? Now, the way that research was carried out was that we went and interviewed 3 people that we believed were successful. At the end of that interview, we then asked those 3 people to nominate 3 other people that they knew that they thought were successful, and so on and so on and so on. That way, we didn't know where the research was going to take us, and also we couldn't dictate the research of what we thought was success. And when I say successful, I don't just mean making lots of money. Okay, so in that research that happened, there was successes like somebody climbed Mount Everest. Somebody had lost a limb and ran a marathon. There was a world champion kickboxer. There was the second in the world memory champion in there. There were some self-made millionaires. There was even a self-made billionaire in that pack. But the reason I'm saying that is because success isn't necessarily all about money. So to measure success, it's not always a monetary measure. Now, of course, if you're in a business, monetary measure is very, very important. If you want a success for the business, you need to make more money than you're giving out. It's as simple as that, isn't it, really? Business is not that complicated. I'm sure Pete will agree on this. You've got to bring money in and spend less, and spend more money in than you spend in, and you make some money at the end. And that's your profit margin. So the point is, the KPIs in business, all productivity, cash, turnover, turnover, profit, all very, very important and all needs to be measured. But there are other successes out there as well. There is, moral successes. There is feeling successful when you've achieved X, Y, and Z that you want to achieve, and so on and so on and so on. So, what we did from all this research is we took all this research, and from it, we put this jigsaw together, okay? And these 4 key elements of the jigsaw, 4 pieces of jigsaw, but actually 5 stages. And it is a system. It's not so much of a process, it's a system. So I am going to take you through it in a process. A to B to C to D, of course. But a system is, imagine your car as a system, okay? And if you took the battery out of your car, the car wouldn't work. So that's quite obvious, isn't it? Yeah, if you take the battery out, the car's not going to work. But if you're driving around, maybe your indicator bulb breaks on your car. Okay, so you're driving around, your system's still running, but the risks and implications of driving around with an indicator bulb not working is you might get pulled over, or worse, you might have a crash. Now, if that is the case, when you get pulled over or have a crash, all of your system stops at that point. So the reason I'm saying this is a system is because it's like lots of different integral parts all coming together at the right time to make the system work. And that's kind of what this is. It's a solution-focused success system that I'm going to share with you. But you've got to do all of these things. You can't do a bit of this and a bit of that. But you've got to do all of them in order for it to be successful. Otherwise, and some things are blatant. If you haven't done a blatant part of the system, it's like taking a battery out of the car. But sometimes it's one of those little things that you haven't quite done right, like the indicator bulb. And all of a sudden, that halts everything in the system. So I hope you enjoyed the system. There is some research behind it, and it's a system that I live by. It's a system that I try and use on a regular basis in order to help me become successful. Bearing in mind, we asked over 4,000 people what they did to become successful, and this is what we got from them. Okay, so we'll kick into the system. So, the first piece of the jigsaw here is thinking and behaviour. Okay, so self-talk, triggers, dendrites, neurological pathways, positive attitude, and choosing behaviours. Now, if you are used to coming on these sessions, you know I have talked about this over and over again. We have sessions on your YouTube channel about self-talk, what to say when you talk to yourself, all this type of stuff. The point I want to make here is quite interesting, okay? So the point is, when we went out and asked these 4,000 people what they did to become successful, we had a bit of a preconceived idea of what they were going to say first. And we were completely wrong. So our preconceived idea of what these guys were going to say first, what did you do to become successful? We thought they were going to say, we had a clear target, we knew what we were aiming for. Okay, and if you see any interviews with sports people, maybe on the BBC at the Olympics or something like that, when they're interviewed, they're normally asked what about your success, and they normally ask a question: have you always wanted to be a runner? Have you always wanted to be a swimmer? And so on and so on. And normally those elite sports people will tell you, they'll say, "Oh, I knew what I wanted from an early age. Yeah, I knew as soon as I could pick up a golf club, I knew I wanted to be a professional golfer. As soon as I could, got in the water, I loved it, and I knew what I wanted to do for a living." So one of the first things we thought people would say was a very clearly defined goal. Now that did come in the research because it's the next piece of the jigsaw, but actually, overwhelmingly, what came back from people when we said to them, what elements, what principles made you successful? The main first thing that came back was having the right mindset. Having the strength of mind to be able to overcome adversity, not listen to the naysayers that are out there, and actually get onto it. And quite interestingly, when it comes to target setting, a lot of those people actually kept a lot of their goals quite secret. And what I mean by that is they kept them to themselves. And why did they keep them to themselves? The reason, very simply, there's a lot of naysayers out there. Yeah? When you tell somebody that you're trying to achieve a stretch goal, they may look at that and they may try and put you off. And it might not even be on purpose. They may try and put you off because of their lack of confidence, for argument's sake. I remember I was 30 years old. I wasn't very fit. I'd smoked for 15 years at this point. And I wanted to get fit, stop smoking, and so I decided to run a half marathon. And I remember telling my brother that I was going to run a half marathon. Now, my brother is a deputy head, PE teacher, used to play football for Crewe Alexandra professionally, exercises on a regular basis, okay? I remember telling him that, and I can remember him visibly laughing at the fact that I was going to run a half marathon, laughing out loud, okay, when I told him. I can still picture it in my mind now. Now, actually, because of my personality, what that did is it spurred me on to prove him wrong, that I actually could go and do this, and I ended up running 5 half marathons. However, depending on your personality, that could have knocked confidence. That could have made me go away and start going, oh, maybe that's too big. Maybe that is too big. Yeah, and it starts to impact my thinking at that point. And quite interestingly, a lot of those successful people didn't tell people about what their goals are. They actually kept them secret because they didn't want other people. Other people couldn't quite see how they would get there, and because of that, they tried to close them down. And you often find that if somebody else is not very confident, they will try and close your goals down because it makes them feel awkward. And those are the people that you kind of need to politely remove out of your lives at this point, or at least remove out of your head at this point. And even family do this sometimes. Yeah, even family. My dad, bless him, love him to bits. He helps me loads with the business. It's all great, fantastic. Sometimes I set targets and he kind of goes, I'm not sure that, that's a lot of work for you, son. Are you really sure that you're going to, are you prepared to do that? It is. Why don't you just aim for this first? And I know he's doing it because he loves me and he wants to get the best for me. But actually, sometimes that doesn't help, because sometimes I don't want to aim for 6 foot. I want to aim for 100 foot, don't I? Yeah? And if I aim for 100 foot and miss, that's okay. But I'll tell you what, I'll clear that 6 foot. No problem. So just bear that in mind when it comes to having the right mindset and the right thinking and behaviour. Other people can influence us, and sometimes not in a great way. Okay? You've heard me talk about self-talk, helpful and hindering, before. We've had that conversation. When you talk to yourself, it needs to be helpful and not hindering. I can do this, I can't do this. Okay, your brain will follow your brain will follow your instruction no matter what. I can do this, I can't do this. Your brain will then follow that instruction and give you the relevant chemical release in order to do one or the other. Okay, to either fight or flight from the situation. I can do this, I can't do this. Okay, triggers is helpful self-talk, pictures, something like that you see or say 2 or 3 times a day. Okay, you will all remember this model if you've done any sessions with me. Thinking, emotions, actions, results. That's how this works. That is the TIR cycle. We've gone on it a number of times now, but the world is waking up to this now. Okay, even 10 years ago, when I was delivering this material, people were amazed by it because they were like, oh wow, so we can do this, we can change the way we think, we can change the results that we get in life. People are becoming more and more and more aware of this now, thanks to more mental health, thanks to us knowing more about the brain, and so on and so on and so on. So this is not new, it's been around a long, long time, but the awareness is a lot newer that this is happening. Your thinking drives your chemical release. Remember, it is in that order: thinking, feeling, electrochemical. Okay? You think and then you feel. So if you feel crap, you're thinking crap. If you want to feel great, got to think great. If you want to feel miserable, think miserable, because that will also do it as well on the back of it. So your thinking drives your emotions, your chemical release will give you the energy to take the actions, and your actions will give you the results that you want. If you're not getting the results that you want, you can try and change your actions, but if you change actions, that will only last short term. If you want sustainable result change, you have to change the way you think. Okay, and again, I know this is an example I've used a few times now, but you know, I caught up again with Peter last week, and the golf club that originally set out to try and make up what they'd lost during lockdown is actually making more money than it did last year, because the mindset changed. Let's not just chase what we've lost. Why don't we aim for this? Why don't we get up there? And again, it's another great example. And I know of other businesses that are doing this. You know, instead of going, how can we recuperate what we lost? We're going, what is it we still want to aim for? So it's a mindset that will change that round. So your first piece of the jigsaw, your first piece of the success system, and I will bring all this together for you, okay, is thinking and behaviour. Getting the right input and having the right behaviours in order to do that. And remember, try not to let other people walk through your mind with their dirty feet. So the first part of the jigsaw, thinking and behaviour, we've covered numerous times, okay? So that's jigsaw piece number 1. Let's move on to jigsaw piece number 2. So jigsaw piece number 2 is targets and motivation. Now again, we've done separate sessions in the past around targets and motivation, but it is a piece of the system. So from all that research we did, all those people, they had the right mindset, they worked on their mindset on a regular basis, they got rid of naysayers in their lives, and then they made sure they knew what they were aiming for. Okay? They knew what goals they had, work and personal goals. Okay? So the word that comes in there is balance. You need to make sure you have a balance between your work goals and your personal goals. Because if you have all work goals, you will find you have no personal life, you have no personal time. If you have all personal goals, you will find that's very, very difficult without working, unless you can marry the two together and your work goals become some of your personal goals on the back of it, okay? Aim for 100 foot. It's something that I mentioned earlier. It's a concept of going, okay, right, if we aim for 100 foot and slightly miss, then we still might get 80 or 90 foot. If we aim for 6 foot and miss, then we're only going to get 3 or 4 foot, okay? Now, what I mean by that is the concept of what you're trying to aim for. So, just to take that one step further for you today, in my business, we have 3 targets, okay? So I'm talking a revenue target now, so something quite tangible. So we have good, great, and remarkable. Okay? So those are the targets. Now, a good target is minimum standard. Okay? So that means everybody gets paid. Happy days. Fantastic. Great. A great sales target is 20% higher than good. That's what great looks like for us. And remarkable target is 80% higher than good. And what we do is we draw up those targets, we work it out, and of course we've had to redo some of those targets because we've had to learn and apply after COVID and all that type of stuff. And then our business plan aims for remarkable. This would be your 100-foot wall here. This good would be your 6-foot wall here. Okay? Now, every single year since I've started my business, we've aimed for remarkable. Every single year. And every single year, we haven't hit it. Okay? We haven't achieved remarkable. However, what we have done is landed somewhere between great and remarkable with our sales numbers for the year, which I am over the moon with. It might well be, you know, that we never hit remarkable. We never hit that number. But that's okay. And it's about having a target. But if it's a stretch target, if it's a remarkable target, if it's a 100-foot thinking target, and you fall a little bit short, that's not a cause to beat yourself up. That's a cause to celebrate. As long as you're clearing good, everybody's happy. And that's really how stretch targets should work. And it's this remarkable target that other people can't get their head round. Those naysayers, those people that think you're pushing yourself too hard or you're being unrealistic. It's that target that they can't get their head round. But occasionally, you know, people do set that target, remarkable, and achieve it. So why not aim for it is my key thing. We all know how to do specific goals, okay? And if you don't, I don't know, I'm just picking my car keys up there to click the next thing. That's amusing, isn't it? Yeah. If you don't know how to set a SMART goal, then there is a YouTube a video about it. But SMART's here: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Okay? So a SMART goal is something that's very specific, very measurable. It's very time-bound. So that's what a SMART goal normally is. By the way, it's normally, normally SMUT. In a business, that's what businesses normally set. Make a goal specific, measurable, and time-bound. We need to make this much money by X date, okay? Specific, measurable, time-bound, okay? However, the A and the R have to come into SMART, okay? So let's just look at the A and the R in SMART. The A stands for achievability. Now that is confidence level. So achievability equals confidence. It's as simple as that. So achievability equals confidence or belief. Right? Now belief is individual. It's individual to the person. Nobody else has got the same belief as you. And your belief is based on what you've put in your filing cabinet over the years, what you've seen happen, what you've seen not happen, what you think you're capable of, and so on and so on and so on. So increasing confidence is very, very, very important. The great thing about confidence, if you ask a neurologist about confidence, they will say it's a dendrite, it's a pathway in your brain, confidence, which means you can grow it. It also means you can grow new confidence pathways in the brain as well. So in order to have a true SMART goal, it's got to be achievable to you. Now, you could argue that remarkable might never be achievable, but there might be a slim percentage that it is. So the point is, even if there's a slim percentage of confidence there, it's worth aiming for and growing. There are two mindsets when it comes to confidence. Two mindsets, okay? There are people that will tell you you need 100% confidence in order to achieve your goals. So you need to be confident you know you're going to achieve it right at the set out of starting your goal, on your goal journey. That's the first kind of way of thinking. The second way of thinking, which I don't subscribe to, by the way, the second way of thinking is, if you have to mark your confidence 1 out of 10, okay, and you've got a goal that's a year long, and you are a 1 in your confidence, so you have, in other words, you have more doubt than confidence that you can achieve this goal, in my opinion, that's okay, as long as you are aware that your confidence is low, and you choose to do something about growing your confidence. And there's little things that can grow confidence, like little wins, can grow confidence, learning more about the subject can grow confidence, and so on, and chunking your big goal down into smaller goals can grow confidence. There's loads of stuff we can do to grow our confidence, but in my opinion, you don't need to be 100% confident at the beginning in order to get the goal, but you do need to be aware of what your confidence level is, because if your confidence level is low, you can choose then to grow it as you're achieving the goal going forward. So, confidence plays a big part in SMART. A lot of businesses I go into tell me they have SMART goals. They don't have SMART goals, they have SMUT goals. So they have goals that are specific, measurable, and time-bound. Have they taken a dip test of everybody's confidence level? No, they haven't. Because if they did, they might realise that there might be some confidence issues there on achieving their goals, and that's where you can aid and support your people on the back of that. And the final letter that often people don't really think about when setting goals is R. And the R stands for relevant. Okay, not realistic. Some people would have seen this R as realistic in SMART. If you've got a goal that's realistic, it will be achievable. So the A covers off realism. Realism and achievability is about confidence, okay? So the R has to be relevant. In other words, It has to be relevant enough to you for you to do something with it. In other words, motivated. Okay? And for those that will remember, there are two types of motivation. Towards motivation and away from motivation. Towards motivation is quite straightforward. Towards motivation, I choose to do this because there's a benefit for me. Okay? So, you go to work because you get paid. It gives you a sense of satisfaction at the end of the day. You like your colleagues. You enjoy the job you do, and so on and so on and so on. They are all towards motivators. Okay? Or you go to work. This is away from motivation now. So the pain of not doing something is greater. So you go to work because the pain of getting another job is too great. Now either way, those two people will go to work. The problem is, if you go to work towards motivated, then you look to be match fit and you look to do your best in the workplace. If you go to work away from motivated, then unfortunately you are a Monday morning grunter, an organisational terrorist, an organisational corpse, whichever way you want to look at it, and you're only there because the pain of getting another job is just too great. And that doesn't do you or the organisation any good whatsoever. Okay? So, from that research, those people that were successful, they told us they had to get bothered. Okay? So they had to have the motivation in place in order to get out of bed in the morning and work every single day on achieving that goal. And some days they didn't feel like it. And some days they were tired. And some days they had a cold. And so on and so on and so on. But they had to find something that motivated them to get them out of bed and get them going every single day. Going on and on and on and on and on and on. Okay? It's as simple as that. And sometimes away from motivation comes in with this. You have to cause yourself a bit of pain to get moving. When I run my first half marathon, I had all the kit. I had the right training gear, I had the right training plan, I had the right diet, I had a running partner, and couldn't get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning to go training. Because I don't like getting up early, I like sleeping in, I like my sleep. It's as simple as that, right? And I had to make a decision, because the race was getting nearer, and I hadn't been training, and I had to either not run the race, so change the goal, because that's an option, or get bothered. And I knew I needed to create myself some pain in order to get bothered. One of my values is not letting people down, so I got sponsored to run the race. I decided to get sponsored. So now when the alarm went off at 5 o'clock in the morning, I have a bigger motivation to get out of bed. It was away from motivation to get me out of bed. It caused me pain, but what that pain did is it got me out of bed. And of course, when I was training, the motivation then changed to be towards motivated because I was enjoying it, feeling fitter, and so on and so on and so on. So, when it comes to motivation, just bear in mind, sometimes we have to create ourselves a bit of pain to get moving, but we also want some towards motivators. In other words, what's in it for me? What benefit is this going to give me? Is it going to give me money? Is it going to give me happiness? Is it going to give me time? Is it going to give me a sense of joy? Whatever that's in there as well, okay? So, second piece of the jigsaw, okay? Remember, motivation, go back to it here, targets and motivation. Have the right target and make sure your target's a stretch target. Aim for remarkable. If you miss, that's okay. You don't want to aim for good and miss. You know, if I aim for good in the business and miss, nobody gets paid. So that's not on. So we need to aim for remarkable. That's okay. Don't worry if it could be a rolling goal you might never achieve. But if you can land somewhere between great and remarkable, you're doing okay. And that's what these people did, these successful people. They had this massive goal over here. And if they didn't quite hit it, they didn't beat themselves up. They went, okay, look what we've done so far. Let's move the goal on and go for it again, or go for a bigger goal next time, okay? And of course then, you need to have the right motivation in place, because motivation is a choice. You motivate you. Thinking emotions, remember? Motivation is an emotion. So if you're not motivated, then you've got to change the way you think. Because it's your thinking that generates the chemicals. So you need to get motivated, you've got to change the way you think. How do you do that? Triggers, dendrites, all the other kind of stuff that we've covered. So, 2 pieces of the jigsaw in. First piece, thinking and behaviour. Second piece, targets and motivation. Now we move on to the third piece, ideas and planning, okay? Coming up with new ways of doing things. Now I'm not spending a long time on this. The session that I'm doing at 11:30 spends most of the session in this piece of the jigsaw, okay? So if you want some 2 little tools on how to be creative with your thinking and come up with new ideas and way of doing things, I'm going to cover something called a mindstorm and a mind map on that session, okay? However, the reason this is in there, coming from that research, is that those people that were successful regularly found new ways of doing things. They didn't just do what they've always done. Remember the old quote that I use quite a lot. If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always got. So if you want to get new results, you can't do what you've just done. If you need new results this year after COVID or next year in your business, you can't do what you did last year. Because what you did last year will give you last year's results. I know that might be quite good actually with COVID, last year's results at the moment. Yeah? But in order, we've got to take some new actions to get some new results on the back of it, okay? So we've got to come up with some new ways of thinking, some new ideas. How do we come up with new ideas? Well, first of all, you've got to give yourself time to come up with new ideas. This is what people don't do a lot of. Especially in business. We get that stuck into the minutiae of the day and the way that we've always done it. We never really sit down and go, how can we do this differently? Okay, and that's quite key. I try and do it once a month. To be honest, we had to do it during COVID, and I'm sure you guys did. A lot of people had to do it during the COVID situation because we had to find new ways of doing things. In fact, some of the new ways that we found, you would argue might have never have come up. Well, it might have done if you'd have done this regularly, yeah? But imagine somebody came up to me, somebody came up to me 5 months ago, 6 months ago and went, John, can you tell me just about how you would do all of your training that you normally do, but you can't see any of your clients and you've got to do it all online. And by the way, you've got a couple of weeks to get it sorted. What do you think my initial reaction would have been to that? Even me that teaches this stuff, my initial reaction would have been, well, no, that can't be done. No. Well, it wouldn't work, would it? But guess what? We've done it. So again, COVID-19 has been a great example of where people have had to come up with new possibilities, new ways of doing things. What I'm suggesting here, and we were told from this research, is that the people that are successful, they do this regularly. They come up with new ways of doing things regularly. Yeah? Remember when Apple came out with the iPad? People wanted an iPad, didn't know what to use it for. No idea what to use it for. I remember getting an iPad for the first time going, oh, this is brilliant, this looks great. What shall I do on it? I don't know what to do. What shall I do on it? I'm not quite sure. Yeah? So sometimes people come up with ideas before the behaviours are in place. And it's something called the 3 Ps that I'm going to take you through on the next session. Generate possibilities, prioritise the possibilities, and then plan them in. Create new ways of thinking. Now, the reason a lot of people don't do possibility thinking or creative thinking is because they're a little bit scared of it and they don't quite know how to do it. Okay? You can go on 3 or 4 day long creative thinking courses. It doesn't take you that long, okay? The tools that I'm going to give you this afternoon, or at 11:30, I'm going to give you a couple of tools where you can do creative thinking in 5 minutes and come up with 20, 40 ideas in 5 minutes, okay? So the whole point of this, and the third piece of the jigsaw, remember, once you've got your thinking and behaviour right, you know what you're aiming for, your targets, and you're motivated to do it, and you've sorted your confidence, you need to come up with how you're going to do it, possibly, then prioritise those possibilities, and then put a plan in place. So you can start to see now the jigsaw starting to come together. Okay, so we've got the right thinking and behaviour, we've got the right targets and motivation, we've got loads of new ideas, we've turned them into a priority list, and we've turned that into a plan. Once we've got the plan, we can move to the final piece of the jigsaw. And the final piece of the jigsaw is taking action and measuring the results. Now, when's the best time to take action? It's an old Chinese proverb I once came across. It was, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, the best time to plant a tree, if you want a tree, is 20 years ago, isn't it? Yeah? But the second best time to plant a tree is now, right now. Okay? The point of that proverb is sometimes we procrastinate and don't take action. If you have a plan, it's easier to take action, but the amount of people that I know that do brilliant thinking, create a plan, then don't do anything with it. Great thinkers don't do anything with it. Remember, thinking, emotions, actions, results. Got to take some action. So we need to take some action. I'm not going to say much more on action, because action's action. You just need to take it. Stop procrastinating and do something. Okay? And again, I'll touch on that for you in the next session. The one thing that in this session that I do want to touch on is measurement. Okay? Measurement. Now, a lot of people are afraid of measurement. Okay? In fact, we haven't done it all session, so just jump on the chat box for me now, will you? Just tell me why you think people are afraid to be measured. Why are people afraid to be measured? That's the question. Just give me some answers in the chat box. See who's awake. See who's awake. Why are people, anybody out there? Anybody there? Why are people afraid to be measured, do you think? Why don't we like measurement? Somebody give me an answer. No? Nobody? Ah, there we go. Okay, so Philip said, scared of being seen as a failure. Yeah, absolutely. People lie about numbers. Yeah. Coming up short, Mick said. All fantastic reasons. So a lot of people don't like to be measured. They might get found out. That's the first thing. It holds them to account. Meggle's just put they're afraid that they'll be misjudged. Yeah, absolutely. All of this stuff comes into it, doesn't it? It's like they're afraid they're going to be held to account. And held to account is important, because if you're going to take responsibility, which is the final thing I'm going to share with you before we finish in a moment, then actually we need that. But the key thing for me about measurement is if you don't measure where you are going against your targets, you don't know whether you're doing the right thing or not. So without regular measurement, you can't learn, adapt, and apply, which is the key thing for measurement. Okay? If you are at point A and you want to get to point B, if you don't measure, let's say those are your measurement points, let's say you start off from point A and it's all going well, and all of a sudden you start to skew off. Well, at point A, you've measured, it's okay. In the second measurement, it's okay. The third measurement, now there's a gap. There's a bit of a gap. The fourth measurement is showing a big gap. Well, if you know what that gap is, you can learn and apply and get yourself back on target for the measurement. Sorry, I don't know if you could see, that's quite close to the camera, isn't it? The point is, measurement should be our friend. And by the way, if you've defined the goal properly, SMART, yeah, specific, achievable, and relevant, the M stands for measurement. So if you've defined the goal properly, it should be easy to measure. Even qualitative measures on the back of that, okay? So even measures like feelings, like culture, motivation, service, things like that. We should be able to measure those as well. So the key thing is, and a lot of what these successful people did, was they regularly measured themselves. And they regularly worked out whether it was working, whether it wasn't working. And if it wasn't working, they learned why it wasn't working, they adapted their actions, and they applied to move forward. Learn, adapt, apply. Learn, adapt, apply. So, what we've got now to finish off is 4 pieces of a success system. Get your thinking and behaviour right. Set your targets, SMART goals. Be motivated. Generate new ways of doing things and prioritise and plan them. Take action and measure on a regular basis. 4 pieces of a system, but they're not together yet. They're still individual. The one thing that brings this together is personal responsibility. And there's a set of choices that we make when we take responsibility for something. Okay? Choice number 1. We choose how much time we spend on it. Time is fluid. It doesn't stop. Okay? 86,000 seconds in a day. On average, 29,000 days on the planet. Okay, for those that haven't heard that number before, yes, it's not a very big number, and some of those collectively might be gone already. So you only get 29,000 days on the planet. Life is not a rehearsal, as one of my coaches told me last week. It's a one-shot deal, so we choose how much time we spend where we spend it. If you're sitting there going, well, I don't choose to go to work, but I have to spend my time there. You don't have to, but the pain of not working would be too great, so you choose to go to work anyway. This is where it starts to interlink with your motivation now, okay? So it's always a choice. You choose how much effort you put into things. That's an internal measure. Whether you're bothered or not bothered, you choose how much effort you put into it. If you take responsibility, you put as much effort into it as you can. You choose which people you interact with. Okay, there are 7 billion people on the planet. There's 1 billion on Facebook. Okay, there is 800,000 on LinkedIn. That's due to be 3 billion by 2025. There are people out there that can help you. Because the one thing from this research that all of these successful people did was they weren't successful on their own. Nobody is very successful on their own, unless you've won the lottery, but then you could still argue you need to buy the ticket off somebody, and so on and so on and so on. The point is, find help, learn from people you don't even know, connect with them, build your network, okay? Because to be successful, you're going to struggle to do it on your own. The next one is a reason. You have the reason for doing what you do. Philip's put, even if you meet a new person every day, you still don't have enough time in your life to meet everybody. No, you don't have enough time, Phil, to meet everybody. However, sometimes you don't need to meet people. I've got people on LinkedIn I've never met, but I send questions out and they answer them. Okay, so it's about how you want to use that time and where you need to get that help from in a particular subject, if that makes sense, okay? So with technology these days, it's quite easy to get hold of a lot of people, and the knowledge that's out there is absolutely brilliant. So that would be my little challenge. I know exactly you can't meet everybody, I understand that, but there are ways of getting knowledge from people without physically meeting them, okay? And the final one, the final choice is, when are you going to do what? So you choose when you're going to take what actions, okay? So again, 29,000 days and 86,400 seconds a day that we spend in. So now what we've got, if we take responsibility, and you'll see that the personal responsibility comes together here, bringing the system together, we have a solution-focused success system in place. If you do all of those things on a regular basis and bring that system together, you are much more likely to be successful. Why do we know that? Because many years ago I went out and asked over 4,000 successful people what they did to become successful, and I have used these principles and this system for the last 15 years of my L&D career, helping individuals and organisations achieve what they want to achieve by moving them round that system. All of our training programs work around that system. Even if we don't show you that system, that's what they work around. So, it's 11 o'clock. I'm going to try and finish on time for once. I hope you enjoyed that. It's great to be back. It's great to have so many people back as well on the first session. The next one is in 30 minutes. And it's going to be around innovation to action. So how we come up with those new ways of doing things to take some new actions on the back of it. As always, leave me some feedback in the chat box before you leave. If anybody's got any questions or whatever, let me know and I'll pick up with you very soon. But I don't know what the weather is by you, but it's very, very sunny today and it's a lovely weather, so have a great day. And if I don't see you at 11:30, I'll see you all next week. Bye for now. Bye-bye.